Hi, this is Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. We'll try that again because we're out of practice. I haven't had an audience in a long time. Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Thank you very much. You too can be a part of the studio audience if you just send us an email. Let us know when you're going to be around, and come and join us. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah and Yiddishkeit, who are, of course, our new producers, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts, as always, it's wonderful to have you along for the experience. And we're starting with a sponsorship. Hi, Rabbi. Thank you for your fresh and very practical perspective on Torah and Yiddishkeit. In particular, your reframing of the Aguna crisis into a choice between marriage versus pilegesh was excellent. Thank you. That is my own chiddush, by the way. It's a great example of how the world uses inflammatory positioning to get us to lose sight of the ikkur issue. Keep up the great work. Canada Rosens. Thank you all the way from Canada. That's wonderful. Baruch Hashem, welcome along for the show, and I don't know what my following is up in Canada, to tell you the truth, but good to know there are some people there who are part of the experience. I want to talk about something this week that was sparked by a comment, and I try to read all the comments and all the emails and things that I get. I don't always respond to them because the general rule is when I get an email like, thank you so much, I enjoy the show, it's very easy for me to respond to it, thank you for listening, or something, and write back. Sometimes I get more involved questions, and sometimes I can deal with them in the question and answer section of the show. Sometimes it's something that I feel is important enough to actually spend an episode on. So there was a comment posted on YouTube, which is one of the places that the show goes up on. There are many people who, of course, watch and listen at Torah and Yiddishkeit. I was in America, and I've had a number of people who do not have internet, but Torah and Yiddishkeit has a call-up option, and they listen on the phone, and they listen that way. So there's a lot of different places and forums. Hard for me to keep track, frankly, of how many people are there. It's somewhere around 25,000 viewers that I can tell now, that I'm able to piece together. It was so interesting when I had my episode when I interviewed Tuvish Singer, and I had told him we had at the time about 20,000 people, and somebody commented. I got a lot of unpleasant comments, but somebody commented, oh, there's no way this guy has 20,000 viewers, and that video has over 24,000 views. So, okay, what can I tell you? I hope somebody else makes a comment like that, so people have no choice but to push up the count. But, so, whenever I can I try to see the comments that people make, and I take them to heart, sometimes more than I should. Some people who are just, negative for the sake of being negative, and there's some people who are positive for the sake of being positive, I like to think. And, but every now and then somebody makes a comment that gives me pause. And that was on my last podcast, the one that I did on the situation. I've done two actually on the situation recently. And somebody wrote me I shouldn't say wrote me, but commented on the video as follows. He puts himself as Jacob Solis, 177. I was an Orthodox religious Jew for 13 years. Judaism teaches that non-Jews, including converts, have a nefesh and a ruach like animals, but only Jews have a neshama. The soul. Now he brings a quote from the Jerusalem Post, October 18th, 2010. The sole purpose of non-Jews is to serve Jews. Why are Gentiles needed? They will work, they will plow, they will reap. We will sit like an effendi and eat. That is why Gentiles were created. Gentiles were born only to serve us. Without that, they have no place in the world, only to serve the people of Israel. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, a top rabbi of Israel. The Jews are waiting for the Messiah, who will be even more brutal than Netanyahu. So, at first glance, you hear a lot of negativity in this. At second blush, I hear a lot of pain. That's what I see in this comment. And Jacob, I first of all want to say to you, Yashikoyach for listening to the podcast. There's no trick to listening to something that you agree with and that you enjoy and that you like, but something that causes you so much pain. I would hope that my podcast per se does not do that, because this is your first comment that I'm aware of anyway, and I hope that I don't usually give over that impression that I give across negative concepts of Judaism. And what can I tell you? There is a certain amount of, Rav Noach Weinberg from Eshet Torah once said, we have the best product, we just have the worst packaging and marketing. Needless to say that if this was the type of Judaism that I had learned from my Rebbeim, I would also feel somewhat uncomfortable with that position. I have heard from Jews say many things that sound outrageous and that I disagree with and that I look into. And I've heard things from even big rabbis that I, what can I say? It does not sit well with me. Yeah. So the topic, first of all, deserves some discussion. At the end, you bring in Netanyahu, which is, of course, the present situation, and I hope we have enough time at the end to actually go and deal with that topic as well. But let's get down to the heart of the matter. The role of Jews and non-Jews. There's a phenomena that Christians are angry at Jews because we claim we're the chosen people. And I remember I was on a panel in Cape Town, South Africa. It was me, in a particular school, it was me, a Muslim teacher, a Catholic teacher, and a secular Jewish teacher. We were all answering different questions on Judaism. And there were a few girls there who I credit them for their involvement. That's the people who might, say things that are a little inappropriate to me is always better than people who don't care. And that's why the fact that Jacob is watching my show and making comments to me is one of the signs that he's an honest, searching person, and in spite of whatever hurt or pain he may have experienced. So these girls were more involved. Anyway, they were hassling the Catholic teacher. You know this from watching my show, that subtlety is not one of my best traits. I had students one time, they said, I see sometimes when there's something a little controversial that you're thinking of saying, you stop and think about it first. But then you say it anyway, so I don't even know why you take out those few seconds to even think about it. Like, what's the point, there's somebody who is a character in recent Jewish history who, in my opinion, has done a tremendous amount of damage to Torah. But, I wouldn't really refer to him. But I made an oblique reference to him once in a podcast. It was really oblique. You had to really be as self-centered as he is to even spot it. And most people had no idea that I was even making an oblique reference. And he wrote me up and threatened he was going to destroy me. He was going to, So I wrote him back and I said, listen, I don't have any jobs. I don't have anything going on anymore. All I have is this podcast. And everybody who watches it knows that I say outrageous things. So there's really nothing you can do to me. I don't really have anything. It's not like you're going to put up something outrageous that I said in the past and people who watch this show will be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said something so outrageous. He says, my gosh, he says it every week. Sometimes when I'm giving a shir, people say, you be careful, Rabbi, it's being recorded. I said, if anyone wants to take me down, there's enough stuff out there already to take me down. But my people know already who I am and the things that I say. So I'm not really worried that's going to happen. But to take the time and point out things, I'm not afraid to walk away from it. So I don't have a gift of subtlety. So these girls were hassling the Catholic teacher, and I was giving them, my look. I get this look from my mother. My wife always says, stop it. Will you stop it, Now, I forget that when I do this, everybody can see it, And so after they finished with her, they raised their hand again, and they said, Rabbi Orlofsky, you seemed a little upset to, the fact that we were hassling the Catholic teacher about Catholicism, but didn't you tell us in the class that the Jews are the chosen people? So I said, yeah, of course the Jews think we're the chosen people. I said, and I would dare say that, Mrs. So-and-so would agree that the Catholics are the chosen people. And she said, absolutely. Of course the Catholics think they're the chosen people. Rabbi Noach Weinberg said once, in America there's freedom of religion. You can be a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim as long as you don't take it seriously. Once you take it seriously, you're a fanatic. So you can say, oh yeah, I believe in this, but not that it's real. I was accosted once by a Reform student when I was speaking. And he said at one point, so you think you're the only one, so the Orthodox think they're the only ones who think that they're right. I said, well, of course, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think I was right. Jews didn't give up their lives throughout history if we didn't think it was right. Of course we believe in it. Of course we think that we're right. And so when the Jews think that we're the chosen people, I mean, my gosh, the Christians certainly think they call themselves the new Israel, and that God has rejected the Jews, and that all the Jews who have not accepted Jesus are going to be cast into the pit of hell for eternity. And in fact, there's a giant mural, by the Vatican showing, Jesus throwing all the sinners into hell, So of course we believe that we're right. It's a silly thing to assume that someone believes in it, and people say, well, you believe in absolute truth? Of course I believe in absolute truth. You don't give up your life as Jews had throughout history for a maybe. What's the point? Of course we believe in it. Of course we think that it's true. Of course we think we're right. Nobody's going to be doing this and dedicating their lives to something that we don't think is right. So if that's the case, what's the reason that people get upset at us when we claim we're the chosen people? Which, by the way, the Muslims believe and the Christians believe, and by the Christians, the Protestants think the Catholics are going to go to hell, and the Catholics think the Protestants are going to go to hell, and then inside of certain Protestant sects, they think that they're going to go to hell, And the Mormons think everyone's going to go to hell. And, you got to get it right. In the 1300s, there were two popes. There was a French pope and there was an Italian pope. And each one put the other followers of the other pope into excommunication. Now, when we put someone into cherem, they translate it as excommunication. That's not excommunication. We just say that you're persona non grata and we don't want anything to do with you because, it's you're going against community norms. And until you want to be part of the community, then the community wants nothing to do with you. That's all that is. It's certainly not excommunication. Excommunication is a uniquely Catholic process wherein the Pope says, you don't get to go to heaven. So one of the popes put all of England into excommunication, and the king had to come in the snow in a penance robe and bow down at the Pope's feet, to do penance, because he says the whole country doesn't get to go to heaven. So like this, if you were a Catholic, no matter which Pope you followed, the other one said you're not going to heaven. So I don't know, it's a pretty serious. So we don't have that. We don't have anybody can come along and say you can't go to heaven because you did this, or I'll decide if you go to heaven or not. We don't have such a concept. But the concept of putting them into excommunication, we don't have that. So when we say we're the chosen people, which means that we're right, what does that mean? So I want to show you two things that should give people pause. The Christian calendar begins in day one, I should say year one, Anno Domino, from the birth of Jesus. That's it. That's the beginning of time, when Christianity comes onto the scene. Before that, it's BC. Cavemen and Neanderthals and Ugg and nothing. Time does not count until Christianity came along. The Muslim calendar begins from the first vision Muhammad got from Allah during his night flight from Mecca to Medina, when God appeared to him. That's the beginning of time, and anything that happened before then is before time. When do we count the calendar? We count our calendar from the beginning of creation, when God created the first human. Not the first Jew, the first human. That's how our calendar works. And when Avram Avinu came onto the scene and began the people known as the Hebrews, we didn't start a new calendar. And at Har Sinai, when God gave us the Torah, we didn't start with a new calendar. We didn't start over. We tell time from the creation of the first human. And that's because Judaism is a religion that recognizes the role of all people in the world. Everybody is here for the same purpose, to have a recognition of God. Vayah Hashem lemelech al koretz bayom hahu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. And the day will come when all of the nations of the world will recognize God. Not the Jewish people will recognize God and will be fulfilled and everybody else will be destroyed. No, everybody is supposed to recognize that God exists and is the ruler of the world. And that's why when we received the Torah, we were told we were going to become a mamleches kohanim. When God chose Aaron to become the first Kohen, it was not to the exclusion of all the other Jews. It means that he is there to be mishares the Jewish people, to serve the Jewish people. The Kohanim and Leviim have a job in the Jewish people to serve the Jewish people, and they don't get any land. in the land of Israel because of that. So the Kohanim get Truma and a few other random gifts. The Levium get 10%, and that's it. The Levium get 48 cities to live in. The Kohanim don't even get that. They're there to serve the Jewish people. That's their job. They're a shaliach between us, a messenger between us and God, for us to be able to reach Him through their service. That's all. They're not there they're there to teach us Torah. They're there to be free to be able to focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but not to the exclusion of the Jewish people. And so they have a role to play. So too the Jewish people have a role to play to the nations of the world. Arafat, I don't suppose he came up with this on his own. I'm sure there were Jews who gave him this line, because there are Jews who favor the Arab cause over the Jewish cause. What can I tell you? I've seen too many Jews killed in attacks and things like that to treat that lightly. But okay, they feel more of an allegiance to Arab terrorists. And so he said once, he says, we are not the goy. Okay, that's a term that in modern parlance somehow is seen as a derogatory term for non-Jews. Yeah, a goy. Goy just means nation. And so the Jewish people are called a goy kadosh. We're also a nation. Yeah. Mika amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. We're a nation. Goy just means a nation. Yeah. So our job is to be there to minister to the world. Ad kedei kach. Okay, well let's examine this now. Abraham is told by Hashem, I'm going to make you into a special nation. I'm going to give you wealth. I'm going to give you fame. I'm going to give you children. You're going to, be this great nation among the people. Yeah? And so he travels to the land of Israel, where immediately there's a famine. So this covenant's working out real good. So he's got to leave. He goes down to Egypt. Egypt, they kidnap his wife. Okay, his wife is holy. Because of her, Pharaoh gets smitten with plagues, which is what pharaohs do best. And they release him, and he comes back to Israel. He comes back to Israel, and he ends up having a fight with his one remaining relative, his nephew and brother-in-law, in Alamilas, Lot. And he says, Lot, let's not fight. Let's separate. So Lot chooses to go over to Sodom. And while he's there, the Sodom gets involved in a war, and Lot gets captured. Okay, so Abraham promised he would be there for him, take care of him, and help him out. So Abraham goes to war against the 4 world powers at that time. How powerful were these guys? Og, the giant, his people got wiped out from these 4 armies. Og survived and ran for his life. Og, the big giant who we later confront in the desert. And they wipe out these people. So Abraham goes to battle against the 4 world powers to save Lot. And he either goes with a small army, or he only goes with Eliezer. Yeah? And the 2 of them go, and they fight, and they defeat the 4 world powers, and they rescue Lot, and they bring him back, who then decides to go back to Sodom. And then at the end, and then of course, after 10 years, he's childless. So he has to take another wife. And he takes another wife, and his 2 wives don't get along together. Those of you who have two wives, you know how awkward that can be. Yeah. So they end up fighting. So he ends up having to send his wife, one of his wives, away, and she does tshuva, and she comes back, and she has a son. And now this has gone on for Lech Lecha. He was 75. Now he's 99. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, so, how do you like my covenant? How's it going for you? I got one last surprise for you. Bris Milah, circumcision. I was saving that for last. Now, if I was Abraham, I might have said, listen, I got to tell you the truth. You told me you're going to make a covenant with me and make me the Jewish people. And I'm going to be this very special nation. And I tell you the truth, things have not been going so great with this arrangement. I really pictured this going differently. That's not what Abraham says. Because God, through all of Parshas Lech Lecha, from the beginning to the end, is sending a message to Abraham. What do I need a chosen people for? To get reward? I'm the God of the whole world. I want everybody in the world to get a reward, not just the Jewish people. You're here to be my representative on earth. That's the goal of the Jewish people. So I wanted you to get a little feeling. I was in Chavetz Chaim in 1977. The whole yeshiva came. Now, until that point, the kitchen was basically serving about 25 people. And suddenly the kitchen was serving 200 people. And they did not have the infrastructure for 200 people. And the executive director, Rabbi Kramer, Oliver Shalom, he was in charge of the whole yeshiva, but he was spending most of his time in the kitchen. His wife, who was secretary, was spending a lot of her day in the kitchen. There were 2 cooks and 2 ozrot, assistant cooks. They were spending most of the day in the kitchen. There was a menahel mitbach, somebody who was in charge, manager just of the kitchen. There was a group of work-study guys who were supposed to be working in the kitchen. There were a number of workers who were there just for the kitchen, and it was a disaster. Things they were totally unprepared for this. You would walk in the morning, there weren't enough plates, there wasn't enough silverware. They would dump 20 loaves of bread on the table with a knife for breakfast. They would put out a giant can of jam. They would put out, 10 or 20 sticks of margarine. And it was just a disaster. There was no way that things could run this way. And so the Rosh Yeshiva asked me if I would take it over. I had done a little bit in high school, organizational work. I had a little bit of a gift for organizational work, but certainly this was not my area of expertise. So I agreed. Erev Yom Kippur, Rabbi Kramer brings me into the kitchen. And he says, okay, here's the potato peeling machine. I didn't even know there was such a thing. Here's the mixer, giant mixers. Here's this, here's that, here's this. I'll introduce you to the cooks, introduce you to the ozrot. They let the kitchen manager go. I was going to take that role. Here are the workers. Here are these are the names of the work study guys. And he leaves. And I said, 1 second, what am I supposed to do? And he said, it's a position of responsibility. If anything goes wrong, you're responsible. Well, right after Yom Kippur is Bein Hazmanim, and everybody's coming in at different times and different things, and I'm just problem solving. I'm running here, I'm going here, this and that. I remember they had schnitzel one night, and guys were yelling at me, "Look at this! I get this one tiny piece of schnitzel. This isn't enough. This and that. I'm doing this and that. I'm just running, trying to put out fires." And the cooks are saying to me, "Nobody did the potatoes." I'm sitting there peeling 50 kilo of potatoes. Nobody did this. No one did that. I'm running around dealing with 100 different things. And the last 3 days before the newsman started, they went on a tiyul. They went away on a trip. And Rabbi Kramer sat down with me and said, "Okay, what do we do?" I said, "Okay, we don't have enough silverware." He says, "Well, I have it, we just haven't toiveled it yet." I said, "Let's go toivel it." He says, "I'll put it in my van, we'll go down, we'll toivel this, there'll be enough silverware." I said, "The work-study guys who are busy doing Mishnah Berurah Seder have to come down before the meal. And so one of them is going to be in charge of slicing bread. We need baskets, and we'll put sliced bread on each table." I said, "Someone else, we need like dessert cups. Someone's going to fill up the jelly and fill up the margarine, and they have to be on the tables before the people come. And we have to do this and we have to do that. We have to change around the menu because you serve like roast chicken like 5 nights in a row, and then suddenly you schnitzel and no one gets any, So we have to change around the menus. We have to this, we have to that." And he says, "Fine, we got 3 days, let's do it." After that, I worked myself out of a job. Things ran so smoothly, I had nothing to do. So I said to him as we were setting things up, "Why didn't you tell me what to do?" And he said, "Because whatever I was doing wasn't working. So there's no point in me telling you what's not working. I figure you'll come in with a fresh pair of eyes. You'll see the problems for yourself. You'll come up with solutions. I didn't think of any of this stuff." And that was it. And everything ran smoothly after that. We had everything running like clockwork. So I changed around the menu. I came up with different things. But we managed to vary things in different ways, and I was able to solve the problem. But that first throw you into a situation. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, "Listen, the world's a mess, and I want you to see, Avraham, that the world is a mess. There's hunger, and there's kidnapping, and there's family strife, and there's childlessness, and there's wars, and there's friction, and there's all kinds of problems going on in the world. That's the deal I'm offering you. I sit around and get reward. I want everyone to get reward. I'm the God of all the peoples of the world. I want someone to be my representative in this world. A goy kodesh, a mamleches kohanim, a group of people who are going to serve mankind. And that's what you're supposed to be. An or lagoyim, a light to the nations, that they're going to see you and be inspired." And let me be perfectly clear here. If you do not live up to that responsibility and inspire the world through good example, you will inspire the world by being the object of the punishment I'm going to put upon you for not serving the world the way you are supposed to. And so, as it says at the end of Dvarim, and people will come to this land from far away and see the destruction like Sodom and Gomorrah and said, "What did these people do to get God so upset at them?" Eliyahu Hanavi says to God, "The Jewish people have sinned, there's no more hope for them." So God says, "Then you can't be the leader of the Jewish people. You don't believe in them? Take the next fiery chariot up to heaven. I'll keep you around to do certain things, but you can't lead the people if you don't believe in them." When the Jews sinned by the golden calf, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "I'm going to destroy the Jewish people," he says to Moshe, "I'm going to destroy the Jewish people. Hold me back." Moshe's like, "You're God." Yeah. I'm going to destroy them. Hold me back. Hold me back. He says, "All right, God, I'm not going to let you." "Oh, all right." Because the job of a leader is to fight for those people. And so, just like the leaders of the Jewish people have to be there to stand up for the Jewish people have to be there for the nations of the world. And therefore, one of the 10 tests of Abraham was, God comes to Abraham right after he has the bris milah, after they seal it in the flesh for generations. And it's on the place where future generations will come out. And he makes this covenant with him for all generations, you and your children forever. He says, you know, Abraham, you have spent your life bringing God awareness into the world, which is the reason that I chose you. You know, the pithy way of saying it is, why did God choose the Jews? Because the Jews chose God. So Abraham chose God. At the age of 52, the Gemara says, he already had a yeshiva going in Haran, tens of thousands of students, teaching everybody about God. He had never had a vision, never had a prophecy, never had anything. He was doing it out of pure logic. There has to be a God. This has to be what he wants. And he was doing it to bring it into the world. And he did it by doing chesed. He says if there's an all-powerful, infinite God, he doesn't need anything. So he created the world as an act of kindness. And I'm going to bring the awareness of God to people through acts of kindness. And that's what he did. He brought kindness into the world. So God says, listen, you've had, starting from the age of 52, about a half a century career of bringing God awareness and kindness into the world. You know there is an anti-force in this world, and that's called stone. They kill you if you do chesed. Chesed is punishable by death. That's how bad they hate acts of kindness. And they're very wicked and they're evil. And if I destroy them, that will remove an obstacle to your ministry in this world. And it'll help you be able to bring God awareness that much stronger, because this powerful evil force working against your concept of kindness and God awareness will be removed from the world. And Avram says, there's got to be some way we can save these people. What about like this? What about like that? Could we try this? Could we try that? And you see from the way Avram is saying that he understands, he's pushing his luck. Please, God, don't be angry at me. Please give me the opportunity one more time. Let me try this. Let me try that. Because he's willing to risk his life to save the most wicked people. Yeah, the nations of the world. And that's why Abraham's name was a contraction of Av Hamon Goyim. Avram, Rashi says, meant he was only the father of Aram. So he took care of only one people. Now when he agreed to become the chosen people, he was Av Hamon Goyim. He's responsible for the welfare of the entire world. And he felt a keen obligation to have to look after everybody. Yosef goes down to Egypt and he manages to save the whole world from starvation. He's worried about everybody. He's concerned for them too. He wants to see the entire world prosper. The Gemara says, if the nations of the world knew what they lost by destroying the Beis HaMikdash, they would have rushed to build it. On Sukkot, we bring 70 offerings for the 70 nations of the world, that they should get forgiveness. When Shlomo Melech dedicated the Beis HaMikdash, the temple in Yerushalayim, he said, this is in the Book of Kings, you can read it, where he says, if a Jew prays and asks for something and he deserves it, grant it to him. But if a non-Jew asks, give it to him no matter what, so that he can see that God is true. He can see your greatness. And so the nations of the world are important to the Jewish people. And I think the best way to watch that, to see this, is to Christians, if you are not a Christian, you are going to be cast into hell. I told you that's a mural in the Sistine Chapel, that the sinners will be cast into the pit of hell. If you don't accept Jesus into your life, you will burn in hell. That's why Christians care so much about you that they'll do anything to get you to accept Christianity. Even if it means torturing you on the rack, or burning you, by rubbing oil on your feet and holding a torch to it, or any of the other tortures and slaughters that the Christians have done to Jews, deny them the most basic humanity in the hope that they will accept the religion of love. But that's only because they love us so much that they want to torture us to death in order for us to become Christians. Muslims, by fire and sword, they will spread the word of Allah. And history has shown that they will do anything to get you to accept Islam because they worry about you having to be cast into the pit of hell. And therefore, they'll do anything they can to get you to convert. And when a non-Jew comes to a Jew, as a rule, we don't proselytize. We're not out there recruiting. And if a non-Jew comes and says, I want to be a Jew, we say, what do you want to do that for? What, are you new to this? You ever hear of anti-Semitism? A lot of people don't like us. You want to be a Jew? You know how many mitzvahs there are? You know how many laws there are? And the non-Jew says, but I want to go to heaven. And we say, no trouble. Do the 7, go to heaven. God gave Noach the 7 Noahide laws. Follow those laws, and you have a place in the world to come. There is a movement called the Noahidist movement of non-Jews who say, we believe that Judaism is right. We're not ready to take on the strictures of Judaism. We like to go golfing on Saturday. We like our cheeseburgers. We're not ready for this restrictive lifestyle that you Jews live. But we want to go to heaven. So there's Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and you're guaranteed a place in the world to come. So they say, one second. Your religion says you don't have to be part of your religion to go to heaven? And we say, yeah. So what kind of religion is it? It's a religion for everybody. Because God is the God of the entire world. And Jews have 613 mitzvos, commandments, not suggestions. And non-Jews have 7 commandments, not suggestions, because God wants to have a relationship with them. So very often, somebody will ask me, so does a Jew get greater reward in the world to come than a non-Jew? And I say, I hope so. I'm doing 613, he's doing 7, and we're both supposed to get the same reward. How in the world is that fair? He says, yeah, but then the Jews are special. He goes, right. However, unlike the Aryan race, which is seen as superior by virtue of birth, anyone can become a member of the Jewish people. Because executives, as a rule, make more money than guys on the assembly line. Because the guys on the assembly line just have to work from 9 to 5, and their union gives them certain rights and certain things, and then they go home. And the executive is there, if he's a good executive, working day and night to be able to take care of everything and do everything that has to be done, and he's responsible. Like Rabbi Kramer said to me, it's a position of responsibility. Anything goes wrong, you're responsible. So it's your job to take care of everything. And not just to say, well, I punched the clock and I'm going home and I should get the same treatment as a work on the assembly line, but I want to get paid a lot more money. No, of course not. You work harder. But anyone can take a test to become part of the executive group. We don't limit it on the basis of religion or race or gender. Anybody can join. And in fact, some of the worst characters in Jewish history, their descendants became part of the Jewish people. And some of the worst enemies of our people. Rabbi Wine tells the story of, he sees these blonde, blue-eyed, little Hasidic kids, and their father, so he says, what's the story? Because my father was an SS officer. And when I found out after the war what he did, I decided I'm giving it up and I'm joining and becoming part of the Jewish people. Sancheriv had descendants. Haman had descendants. You can be the worst person in the world and a person says, I want to join the Jewish people. You have that opportunity. Nebuchadnezzar's general, Nebuzaradan, converted to Judaism. Anyone can join. You don't want to join? Okay. You don't have to. But that doesn't mean you can't go to heaven. That doesn't mean you can't have something to do, but you're not going to have the same relationship. So, I could have a good friend, doesn't call me all the time. Yeah, not always there for me. Okay, I can have friendships like that. When I see them, we're happy to see each other, we talk, we schmooze, we have a nice time. But that's not a wife or a husband. A wife or a husband is 24/7. It's not when you feel like it. One of my daughters, I have 2 divorced daughters, and one of them, her husband would just disappear for days at a time. Just go off places. Just disappear. Go AWOL. Yeah, it's not really a successful marriage. You got to be there. Years ago when we were first married, my wife said to me, I feel like you take me for granted. I said, of course I do. I take it for granted. You're going to be here in the morning and you're going to be here at night. Otherwise, what an unhappy marriage this would be if I wonder every day, are you going to be here or not? Of course I take it for granted. That, of course, was the wrong answer because, women have a different conception of relationships than guys do, Like someone told me recently, my wife keeps asking me, do you love me? And finally I said, I told you already. Let's do this. I love you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. But it's a total commitment. So if a non-Jew says, I don't want that total commitment, mitzvahs, obligations. Obviously a friend has less obligations than a spouse does. I don't want to be a spouse. I want to be a friend with God. No problem. But then you're going to be in the friend zone and you're not going to be in the spouse zone. And so if my friend says to me, oh, you're choosing your wife over me? Yeah. You choose my spouse. That's 24/7. That's a total commitment. So of course my wife comes before you. So if a person wants to have that level of relationship with God, you can join in. If you don't want to, then you'll have a lower level. He mentions in the question that non-Jews have a lower level soul than a Jew. To say he has an animal soul is clearly not true, because it's only because of the Tselem Elokim that human beings can speak and think. Animals can't speak and think. So obviously, if you're a human being, a member of the human race, whether we use the term Ben Adam or Ben Sheis or Ben Noach, which is the choice the Gemara often uses. Ben Noach, descended from Noah, and Noah was a pretty good guy. So you have a level of soul that is a human soul. It's just that a Jew, because he's going to have a higher level of relationship with God, because he's going to be more committed to it. Now, you have a line in here that I never heard of in my life, that converts don't get a Jewish soul. I mean, the Gemara says, it's a Gemara. When a non-Jew converts, he gets a new soul. And he starts over again. And he becomes part of the Jewish people, to the point that he can say, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, the God of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He becomes part of the Jewish people and part of the mission of where the Jews are going in this world. It's not a punishment that a non-Jew has a lower level soul. It's because Jews have a certain sense of angst. It's been written about by different authors throughout history, that Jews always feel this drive, there's something missing in them. Why? Because they have a higher soul. Because they're looking for a deeper level of spirituality. Now, if a non-Jew is not looking for that level and isn't willing to make a total commitment, and you give him that higher level of soul that makes him feel empty and searching for a spiritual existence that he doesn't want, that's just mean. Why would you give a soul of that level? What's the point? But the Gemara recognizes great intellectual accomplishments by non-Jews and great actions by non-Jews and things that have been done throughout history. Of course we recognize that. And when a person decides, I want to put my lot with the Jewish people, then we give you a soul that makes it possible for you to have that deeper connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if not, why give you a soul like that that's just going to make you frustrated and unhappy? In the, I don't know what Avad Yosef said. I never saw the article. I don't know the context. But I will tell you the following. Yeah, there is a concept that when Mashiach comes, non-Jews are going to do all of the physical aspects of the world. Why? I'm going to try to put this in the context. If you appreciate it, you do. If not, not. A guy wrote a book called Baby You Can Write My Car. Baby You Can Drive My Car, which was a Beatles song. Baby You Can Drive My Car, right? And it was a biography that he wrote, that the Beatles asked him to drive them. The Beatles. Now, I know a lot of my audience don't even know who the Beatles are, but they were, when I was growing up, they were the closest thing to gods. Ad kedei kach that Charles Manson saw the four Beatles as the four angels mentioned in the book of Revelations, with fiery breastplates, which he thought was their electric guitars, you know. So they were like gods. So he says, you know, would you drive us around? And the guy, I heard him in an interview once, he says, what was the question? I quit my job, I left my family for the schus to be able to drive the Beatles? Rock bands have what are called groupies or roadies who follow them around. And they're thrilled to be able to carry their equipment or to set up their amps. Why? Because they love these people. They think they're the greatest. They're like on such a pedestal. And so right now in this world, the fact that the Jews have a lot of experience in teaching spirituality, that's not so valuable. But when Mashiach comes and everyone's going to know that Judaism is correct, people are going to turn to the Jews and say, oh my gosh, you knew about this? You've been doing this for thousands of years. Teach us Torah. Show us how to do it. And we say, well, I'd love to, but I got to go harvest my field. I'll harvest the field. You sit in the base medrash and learn, and just come and teach us. We'll handle that stuff. I'll pick up your dry cleaning. I don't care. You teach us this Torah. Teach us spirituality. Back in the 60s and 70s, I knew people came from nice middle-class backgrounds who gave up to serve these Eastern masters. If you remember the Moonies and some of these other movements where these people would sit there and the Hare Krishna and collect money for their leaders to be able to go and sit and meditate and reflect on God. Thomas Friedman from the New York Times, he once asked Rabbi Refson, who was running the Vei Yerushalayim, why aren't you a cult? He says, because in a cult, the sacred master sits in his room and meditates, and he sends his little followers out to raise money for him. Here, my little followers sit in the ashram, and I go out and raise the money. But the point is that it's not because they're going to be enslaved. It's because they're looking for spirituality. Listen, we've been spending thousands of years in that. That's got to be worth something. We will pay a doctor a lot of money if he has a lot of experience and knows how to heal us. We'll pay a baseball player a lot of money if he knows how to catch a ball or throw it. We'll pay people who have expertise in different areas a lot of money to be able to give us their expertise. The nations of the world recognize that these are the people who've known about God all this time. When Mashiach comes, everybody's going to recognize that the God, not the God of the Jews, God is the correct God. And they're going to come to us and say, wow, you guys knew this the whole time. Teach it to us. And that's the idea. As far as your last point, which really deserves a lot more attention, that the Messiah will be even more brutal than Netanyahu. That really deserves much more of a discussion. It's just, when you see these talk show people, and I don't want to mention any of them by name, who attack the Jewish people, and it's not Israel. They attack the Jewish people. It's not Netanyahu. It's the Jewish people. For what's going on in Gaza. The one question they can never answer is, if you had a country and this group of people came in and killed 1,200 of your people and kidnapped 200 of your people and are still keeping them 2 years later in tunnels, and they won't give them up, what would you do? Nobody answers that question. Nobody answers that question. What are we supposed to do? Just say, oh well, I guess we'll never see those people again. I guess just have to leave Hamas to continue to shoot rockets at us. Oh well, I guess we'll just have to wait until Iran finishes their nuclear bomb, and they've made no secret of it that they plan on dropping it on us. Oh well. I guess the people in the north will just have to have no place to live because Hezbollah is going to keep dropping bombs on them. Oh well. So what are we supposed to do? Yes, but you can't fight back because that's cruel. So what should we do? What would anyone do? Anybody's going to sit there and let people shoot rockets at them over and over again? Kill their people? Kidnap them? Hold them as hostage? And not do anything about it? Well, they should do it in a different way. What should they do? And nobody has an answer to this question. What should they do? Negotiate. Have you ever tried negotiating with Hamas? Negotiate. Ridiculous. And what can I tell you? There are people who just have a different way of looking at life. It's difficult for those of us who are good people to understand it. Because we don't understand that there are some people, Douglas Murray, who happens to be a brilliant commentator, he just put out a book, and he basically refers to Hamas and these movements as a death cult. The Israelis have at times had to go in and kill people, obviously. But they don't call up their parents and say, "Mom, I just killed a bunch of terrorists." They don't dip their hands in their blood and hold it up to a screaming crowd. We would be more than happy to end this and not have to fight and not have to die. And a bunch of soldiers get killed because they walk into a booby-trapped house instead of just bombing it. And our people get killed. You think we want that? What can you do? You're dealing with people whose entire existence is dedicated to nothing other than to kill us. So when Mashiach comes, as it is described, there will be no more war. Everyone will understand that the Jews were correct and that there is one God, and He created the world, and He's the God of all the peoples of the world, and He wants the world to be a peaceful place. And we will beat our swords into plowshares, and the world will become a place where everybody will be working together to take care of each other and to make the world a better place. That's the Mashiach that I'm waiting for. That's the day that I'm praying for. And if the non-Jews want to help me so that I can be free to instruct the world about spirituality, more power to them. We're not enslaving them. They're volunteering for this in order to be able to experience the spirituality that the Jews received at Mount Sinai. We have suffered for 2,000 years to keep alive the Word of God and to live a better life. And I'll never forget, during the first Intifada, Newsweek had an op-ed piece. Said, yes, we hold Israel to a higher standard, but they're supposed to be a light unto the nations. They didn't say that about anybody else. You don't see anybody protesting all the other death and destruction that's going on in the world. Nobody cares. But us, the nations of the world, instinctively understand that we're here to be able to be on a higher level and to instruct the world on a higher level. And when we maintain that and we can inspire the world enough, then we will usher in the Messianic era. Yah Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, melech al kol haaretz, not Moshel, not a dictator or a ruler. A melech rules with the permission of the people in charge, the people who appoint him king. Kila Hashem hamalucha u'moishel bagoyim. He can still run the world now, but when Mashiach comes, Vayah Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, He'll be the king where everyone will recognize this goal that God is there to bring the spiritual pleasure of being close to Him to everybody. And that's what we are praying for and waiting for. So I hope that has at least, if it doesn't convince you, maybe it'll just give you a little solace, as you write Jacob's solace. Maybe it'll give you a little solace, a little nechama, that we Jews ain't so bad after all. And hey, as they used to say in Motel 6, we'll leave the lights on for you. So anytime you want to come back, the door is open and we're always here. And by the way, I know I have a non-Jewish audience. Anybody who wants to join, we got a position for you. If you know a Noahitis out there, welcome to the club. Yeah, happy to have you along. And Mitzvah Hashem, all of us will be there as an inspiration. And that's it for this episode. If you want to find out more about the podcast and the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can sponsor an episode. You can submit a question. You can join one of our online shiurim. You can leave a comment. And that's it for now. Until next time, I am David Orlofsky, and this has been the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.